Good morning and welcome to Trip Tips. Well, good news. I came back to the Isles of Shoals and I have not seen a wink of Veyman. I thought he was going to attack me there. Well, let's get started before he interrupts. Today we're talking about pirates. People love to talk about pirates out here. Blackbeard, Captain Kidd. We talked all about the pirate bride in a previous episode. And supposedly, this butcher from Appledore, Philip Babb, came back from a life of piracy. However, there has only ever been one confirmed case of piracy on the Isles of Shoals. One! And I seriously doubt that Blackbeard was ever here. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. So let's discuss this mysterious pirate, John Quelch, and his story. Was he out here? No. But his crew was. But let's get some context first. So today's question is, who was John Quelch? Let's sail back to 1703. A simpler time, yet an age of so much turmoil. The English were at odds with the Spanish and French. Surprise, surprise. What about the Portuguese? Well, they weren't enemies, but they weren't exactly friends either. Mother England really loved to arm wrestle with the other mothers. French raiders have been causing trouble up north, so they needed to be dealt with. In response, Massachusetts sent the ship Charles to go deal with the problem. The 80-ton brigantine set sail out of Marblehead Harbor in August with the captain, Daniel Plowman, and the ship's lieutenant, John Quelch. Plowman would go on to live a hearty, fulfilling life, well, at least as much as he could with his 48 hours as captain. Supposedly Plowman died of natural causes, but he was barred in his cabin, so... Either way, as ship's lieutenant, Quelch took control as captain.
Give me all your ships!
Quelch, instead of continuing the mission to attack the French, decided that he instead wanted more valuable targets to the south, in South America. There, they had Spanish and Portuguese vessels, and boy did he score. Charles would go on to capture as many as 9 Portuguese vessels, which is fine, right? Wrong. Quelch and his men may or may have known it at the time, but shortly after they left, Portugal and England had become allies in the war against France and Spain. Whoops. Well, what did they raid? Chest upon chest of Spanish golds? Well, pirates didn't always find gold. Most times they collected trade goods, including fancy clothing. Captain Quelch captured molasses, fish, lumber, some crockery, like silverware and plates, 2 slaves, which were sold to crew members of Charles, and a little cash. What else did he find? He and his crew end up scoring big with gold dust and silver, 960 ounces to be exact. This amount would be worth about $2 million today. Now, this did not include the crew's shares, who would have lived comfortably with the loot they had taken. And did they raise the black? Yes and no. If Quelch and his crew believed themselves to be privateers, raiders with legal allegiance to a country during wartime, and not pirates, raiders with an allegiance to themselves during peacetime, then he would likely have raised a black flag, but not a specifically designed Jolly Roger. Some historians, however, believe he had the first Jolly Roger with the figure, piercing heart, and hourglass. When Charles landed back in Marblehead, Massachusetts in May 1704, Quelch's men quickly dispersed, leaving him to face the music. While the captain may have not known about the peace treaty while at sea, he certainly knew about it by the time he had made port. After disembarking, he did all he could to eradicate the evidence that his loot came from Portuguese ships. This included melting down gold to rid it of Portuguese marks.
Shiver me timbers, boys!
Shiver my timbers!
Shiver his timbers!
Shiver my timbers!
Shiver your timbers!
Shiver his timbers!
My timbers of
Quelch also came up with a cover story.
Alright, boys, let me make this perfectly clear. We got the loot from the natives who stole it from a Spanish shipwreck.
Aye, aye.
However, the crew had taken some souvenirs and left them aboard, including a Portuguese flag. I guess they weren't very thorough. So after Quelch gave his sponsors some of the loot, he was captured for piracy and thrown into Boston prison.
No! Ah! This is not the outcome I wanted!
After taking Quelch, Massachusetts Governor Joseph Dudley set out to catch the crew. They had fled to Marblehead and headed to Salem, Massachusetts. There, they took a boat and rowed right out here, to the Isles of Shoals, Star Island. The fishermen were lawless enough that they wouldn't really care if some pirates were out here, so it was the perfect place to disappear. Well, sort of. Former judge of the Salem witch trials, Samuel Sewall, was hot under tail. He commandeered a fishing shallop and snuck out on the escapees. Without striking a stroke or firing a gun, the pirates surrendered. On them was confiscated 46 ounces of gold dust, but Sewall never checked the island. Due to the large sum that was taken from South America, this seems like a low number. Could there have been more gold left here on Star Island? Is it worth checking for gold dust that's been thrown around over the years? Do gulls like people near their nests? Huh, I guess they kind of do. With the pirates captured and only half the gold recovered, Governor Dudley put John Quelch on trial. Crimes such as these had always been heard by a jury in England, but another Dudley, Attorney General Paul Dudley, pushed for an admiralty trial on the spot, a first in the New World. In June 1704, Quelch was convicted of piracy and sentenced to be hanged. 20 of his crewmen were caught and convicted along with him, but only 5 would have the hangman's noose next to the captain. On June 30th, 1704, Quelch stood before the morbid audience and declared,
They should also take care how they brought money into New England to be hanged for it.
After they were declared dead, their bodies endured the rise and fall of 3 tides before being cut down and buried in unhallowed ground. Guess they didn't think strangling someone to death was good enough. In all fairness, they didn't take zombie pirates into account. In the end, there were not many good endings. The hangings, both in the colonies and England, were considered illegal by many, making this an early spark that would lead to the American Revolution. The Dudleys represented the unjustness of the crown to the colonists, and the colonies having too much power in their hands to the British. Quelch's sponsors were unhappy since the Dudleys confiscated the loot, Charles, and all the cargo. The Dudleys, meanwhile, got nothing more than a slap on the wrist and a lot of pay. As for the rest of the stolen gold, it was sent back to Portugal. Ha! Yeah, right. It was shipped to England where it was melted and minted by none other than Apple aficionado Sir Isaac Newton. And with all of this rich drama on Island and all we talk about is Blackbeard? What is this madness? I guess no one really cares what happens as long as it makes for a good story. I mean, 15 wives? Anyway, thanks for joining me on Trip Tips. Good evening. Aaronburg.
7, 8, 9. Thank you. Dumb go!